Get off my radio station, Tom. You disgust me. You're not interested in facts. You're a Putin apologist who doesn't see that there is a threat from Russia, and you should be ashamed of yourself. Russia has invaded Ukraine, correct or not? People like you make me absolutely sick.
So NATO hasn't expanded. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that at all, but all of these members of NATO volunteered to join NATO. No one forced them into it. They decided it was in their national interest to do so.
So has NATO expanded?
Well, of course it has.
You know,
but it's a defensive organisation. The fact that it's expanded doesn't mean to say that it's about to invade Russia.
Well, the point is it's a threat to Russia, and of course Russia
no, it isn't a threat to Russia.
Take that view. Well,
it isn't. How is it a threat to Russia?
If you expand in an area that is contrary to, previously they were kind of separate. They were not part of the same unit. And so, therefore, if suddenly they become loyal to one group as opposed to their existing format...
If a country wants to join an international organisation because it feels under threat from a country like Russia, and there's all sorts of good reasons that these countries should feel threatened by Russia, are you seriously saying that a defensive alliance like NATO should say, no, sorry, you can't join?
What threat are you suggesting that Russia has with those other countries that have joined?
Oh my God! Are you that thick? Really? No. You don't see Russia as a threat? I mean, it's just invaded Ukraine, for God's sake. What more do you need to know?
Ad hominem won't help you, I'm afraid, because you're talking the same. Well,
just respond to the fact that Russia
is boringly, repeated by you people all the time. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's repeated because it's true. Russia has invaded Ukraine, correct or not?
Russia has invaded Ukraine, but Ukraine is half of Ukraine, or certainly the eastern part of Ukraine, is loyal to Russia. So,
about 20% of Ukraine, and not everyone in that part of Ukraine is loyal to Russia.
Where did you get that percentage from?
Well, you said half. We all know that it's not half because there are only about 25% Russian speakers.
Well, there's east and there's west, and I'm putting it in the category of east.
No, the Donbass and all of that region, I mean, that counts for about 20% of the landmass of Ukraine.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You just reiterated.
I'm sorry, Carl, but you've demonstrated in this phone call that you're not interested in facts. You're a Putin apologist who doesn't see that there is a threat from Russia, and you should be ashamed of yourself. Goodbye.
Aren't you forgetting that Russia, with Gorbachev and America with Ronald Reagan, they got together, and it's about time that we help each other to get rid of the atomic weapons, constantly arguing and fighting with each other. And Ronald Reagan asked Russia to give up, remove the wall in Germany, which was quite a big decision, and he agreed to that. And the only thing they asked...
Well, you've got a very strange memory of history there. He didn't agree to that at all. It was the East German people that knocked it down.
No, the thing is, if Russia had said, no, we are not going to agree to have the war done, it would have never happened. The whole arrangement was a fantastic arrangement between Russia and America.
That's not what happened. That is not what happened, Terry. You're right that Mikhail Gorbachev decided not to intervene, but if you're seriously suggesting that it was him that promoted the demolition of the Berlin Wall, it did not happen.
The thing is, he could have refused. He could have said, no, we are not going to accept this.
He could have sent in the troops, you're right. Yeah. He could have sent in his army, you're right, and he didn't.
So there was an arrangement, a suitable arrangement, we put an end to all this argument and everything. The only thing Russia asked from West and Europe and America, do not allow NATO come to our borders. And then somebody like Zelensky comes along and he wants to join NATO. And there's so many people, innocent people getting killed, they're displayed for what? Absolutely.
For an invasion by a foreign power, that's for what?
They had to do it.
It's not an invasion. Terry, I'm not interested in hearing your views anymore. If you think that was not an invasion, what do you think hundreds of thousands of Russian troops going over the Ukrainian border was if it wasn't an invasion?
No. What I'm just saying, if you suddenly find Iran come over to Scotland and threatening England, what would you do?
What? Are you completely deranged?
I'm just saying, how can you possibly turn around and blame everything on the West and Russia when there is... They had
who invaded Ukraine? Which country invaded Ukraine?
Russia.
Exactly.
They had no right to do that. But you got to remember, you can only push people so far, and they say, "Look, this is it." We came along, we made arrangements. That was there was end of USSR. We gave them freedom, everything they wanted. All we asked for, please keep away from our borders. Now, what can you say to that?
I don't know where to start. I mean, people like you really live among us, don't you? I mean, the fact is, if Ukraine wanted to join NATO, it should have been allowed to put in an application. You've got other states like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all bordering Russia. They were all members of NATO, and yet Ukraine, for some reason, people like you shouldn't have. You think it shouldn't have even been allowed to apply. I wonder what you think, whether we should be allowed to apply to join international organisations if one other country thinks we shouldn't. Honestly, Terry, people like you make me absolutely sick.
America started the war via the Maidan coup originally, but coming back to the point is, fair enough, I mean...
Putin started it by invading Ukraine. There was no war before that.
Well, there was a war in the east where... I've discussed this before, but let's go through what is happening presently. Trump has been told lies, where he's been told Ukraine is holding fast, everything's under control. And then suddenly Prokofiev fell, and he suddenly realised if he doesn't organise a peace treaty now, he's going to be holding the can when literally Ukraine folds. There are Ukraine, the recruits, they've been stealing people off the streets for the last 2 years, for goodness sake. They're losing more. Ukraine is losing more men than they are actually putting in the army on a monthly basis. Where
do you get this fiction from? You say Ukraine's not holding fast. It absolutely is in terms of territory.
You see, where do you get your information from? You get your information from Ukraine, which passes it on to our ministry.
No, I get my information from respected people like Michael Clark, ex-director of RUSI, and Sean Bell, who follow this on a minute-by-minute basis.
I follow them, and they say so much stuff which is, if what they said was true, Russia wouldn't be where it is at the moment, in the position it is. It's been an attritional war from the beginning, and we've got no more weapons we can send them other than Tomahawks. Ukraine, it's not fair on Ukraine. We're forcing Ukraine to continue this war.
No, we're not. Nobody's forcing Ukraine to. It's the Ukrainian government that is continuing the war, and the Ukrainian armed forces are performing heroics in the face of a much larger nation.
Look, I used to travel I've got family, I've said it before, family, friends across Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. I used to go every summer, I used to go paintballing with guys in local villages where my family lives. And out of 23 guys in the paintball team, there's maybe 2 or 3 left. Ukraine is suffering, and the longer it's not fair on Ukraine.
Well, of course, you only have Ukraine's interest at heart, do you? Because it doesn't sound like that.
I do, because I've seen it. I can bore you to death with loads of facts and information. But the fact is, Trump is the only one. Between Trump and Putin, they're the only two who can fix this. Europeans getting in the way. I mean, Europeans, we're the little vassal states that do what America wants anyway. Ukraine is a puppet state, unfortunately. We've got our CIA.
How is Ukraine? Oh my! Here we go. How is Ukraine a puppet state? Who is pulling the strings?
Okay, you've got the CIA. You've got the Pentagon telling them what to do.
Oh, really? Do we? Because if that was the case, America would be supplying huge amounts of weapons to Ukraine, and it's basically have been, but not now.
They've run out.
No, they haven't. They can't. Oh my goodness! You think America has run out of weapons to supply to Ukraine? Are you barking mad?
All they've got left? No. What about the artillery? Look, Russia is outnumbering artillery. in different regions.
Why aren't they making progress in terms of taking territory then? Because they make a few
attritional war.
No,
if they've wiped out 1.7
but they expected to win this war in 3 days and conquer the whole of Ukraine.
Do you know who said that? Do you know who started that?
What do you mean?
Days? Who started the quote? They're going to win. Well,
Putin believed that's what would happen. He believed it would be an easy victory.
You believe our own propaganda.
No, I believe him when he says he was the one that thought it would be easy.
No, he didn't. Let me just make this point. The first
These people live among us, ladies and gentlemen.
Was General Miley. You can check it out. The first person, American General Miley, said, Russia expect our...
I've never heard of General Miley, and why should I have heard of General Miley? You can come out with as many quotes as you like from people that you found on some conspiracy website, which you've bought into, and you come on here and utter your Putin propaganda, and we've all had enough of it, James.
All right. Well, thank you for giving me some time, but if you look up everything I said, it's factual.
No, it's not factual.
The only way this war is going to finish is if Ukraine becomes neutral and Russia keeps the 4 eastern regions that it wants, and it will keep Crimea.
And what message will that send to all of the other states that Russia surrounds that are fearful of a Russian invasion?
Russia's never invaded the Baltic states.
No, but it might do. If we
got no intention.
James, let me actually counter a point to you, because the problem here is that if Putin gets away with this and keeps territory, and I accept that probably the outcome of this is that he will keep a lot of that territory. I'm not stupid on that front. But if that happens, do you not think that he would be encouraged, therefore, to think, well, I've got away with it in Ukraine, I could then get away with it in Moldova, in Lithuania, in Latvia, Estonia, wherever?
He's not going to touch NATO states, first of all, yeah? Moldova,
well, you say that, and I would have agreed with you before Ukraine.
Done it in the past. Look, if Putin was the bad guy you say he is, he would have taken Georgia.
You don't think Putin's a bad guy?
He's crept along. If Putin was the madman
he's been so restrained, hasn't he?
Nuclear weapons by now.
He's been so restrained, and his forces have kidnapped 20,000 children.
No, he hasn't kidnapped 20,000 children.
Probably more.
All right, back in February, when Ukraine and the first round of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine could only come up with 359 names of kids that they were looking for out of the supposed 20,000 you just quoted.
Well, that, I'm afraid, again, it's complete fiction. It's complete fiction, because we know that there are thousands of Ukrainian children that have been taken into Russia and have not been returned. And if you deny that, James, I'm afraid you're as culpable as anyone in this.
I'm not. What I'm saying, they came out of the eastern regions, where an awful lot of those 20,000 were Russian-speaking kids.
Oh, so it's okay for them to be kidnapped?
They want, they're speaking Russian.
No. They were taken from their homes in all different parts of Ukraine, but you're right, in the Donbass as well, Russian-speaking area, and they were taken into Russia. Now, if you don't consider that kidnapping, I don't know what you would describe it as.
If you're telling me they were all kidnapped when a good few thousand of them were found in Germany, but nobody ever mentions that.
Found in Germany?
Yeah. A good number of a good couple of thousand kids were found in
so it's probably NATO that kidnapped them then, was it?
I'm not saying that. Everyone... check out for yourself. But, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think finally I've silenced you. Thank goodness for that. James, thank you for that. Chris has just checked that out, and there's absolutely nothing to corroborate what you've just said. And it's roughly about the same amount of truth that you've told in the rest of the conversation, I suspect.
Hello.
Hi, what would you like to say?
I was going to say that it's unethical. It's immoral, really, to use this money to perpetuate a war in which millions of Ukrainians are suffering. The economy in the country's been devastated. And
by whom?
by the perpetuation of this war. And the fact that
it's been devastated by the Russian invasion. That's what you really mean.
Not really. Well, in the sense it wasn't really a classic military invasion in the sense they didn't occupy. It was more of a token gesture. That, I mean, if you consider the size of Ukraine, which is probably the second largest country in Europe, I think he had something like Putin, when he had launched this so-called special military operation, he had about 100,000 troops. Well, it's not conceivable that you could actually invade a country that size when you consider what, say, the German Wehrmacht did in 1941. Hitler had something like 3 million troops. So it's not really to suggest that it was an invasion.
Hang on a minute. Do you not remember in the first weeks of the invasion, they tried to invade as far as Kiev? There was that huge long queue of Russian military vehicles.
Yes.
What was that apart from an invasion?
That was purely like it was an indicator, like a form of a threat, of intention. But if you consider
they were bombing Kiev at the time, and they thought they would be able to take it in a few days, and they failed.
Yes. Yeah, it was very, very small scale and limited. If you consider that
please.
Kiev, seriously, Kiev. If you look at it in Wikipedia, you'll see that it's traditionally it was a Russian town. In fact, it's more Russian and it's older than Moscow. It goes back to the 8th century.
You're absolutely right.
Rus. It was known as Kiev Rus.
Oh, and that gives Putin the right to invade it, does it?
Well, when you bear in mind that nobody's talking about legitimate Russian security interests.
But you're talking like an appeaser of Hitler in the 1930s, talking about German security interests in the Sudetenland.
No, the parallels can be drawn with, for example, the Monroe Doctrine, with, for example, Khrushchev stationing missiles on Cuba in 1961, which brought us to the brink of a nuclear war.
Nobody has stationed missiles in Ukraine until the Russian invasion.
Well, but they're pretty close to Ukraine. If you consider
that's all right, then.
a new base in Poland and a new base, a massive NATO base in Romania.
What is it about you people that you take the Russian side in all of this? What is it? Well, you clearly are. Anyone who's listening to this conversation will know that you have been making excuses for the last 5 minutes for the Russian invasion without saying a single word condemning it, without saying a single word to defend the Ukrainian sovereignty.
Because Putin made it quite clear that if Ukraine was to enter NATO,
it hasn't entered NATO.
No, but it started the proceedings whereby.
And do you not feel? I mean, do you think Finland or Sweden had a right to enter NATO? They're just as close to Russia as Ukraine is.
But if you consider that, say, 50% of the population of Ukraine is Russian or of Russian descent, they speak Russian. Most of the people that live north of the Dnieper River.
That's because they were part of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, they were part of it. That's right.
Yeah. And now they're a sovereign nation and have been since 1991.
Well, yeah, but if you consider the borders actually are artificial, if you consider most of what is now Western Ukraine was formerly part of Poland.
International borders are drawn up under agreement. Russia signed the Budapest Memorandum in 1995, guaranteeing Ukraine's borders, as did we, as did the Americans. And you raised the NATO red herring. NATO never let Ukraine start the process of application. And if you if you seriously believe that sovereign, independent nations shouldn't have the right to decide which international alliances they join, then I don't know what planet you're on.
Yeah, but I think it was actually the Bucharest NATO summit meeting in April 2008, and Merkel and Sarkozy were there, and they both counselled against. Actually, Putin and Lavrov were there actually at the time, and both Sarkozy and Merkel counselled against allowing Ukraine to enter. NATO, or at least to start that process.
Exactly, and the process has never started. So what's your problem?
Well, no, it has started. Effectively, since 2008, we've been NATO was training something like 10,000 Ukrainian troops a year up until the invasion.
And wasn't that a good thing that they did? Because at least Ukraine had some of the resources to fight back. I mean, I'm actually rather proud that Britain was one of those nations that have been, after the invasion of Crimea in 2014, which was a signal of Putin's intentions, I'm rather proud that we have been training Ukrainian troops all of that time.
But I think there's probably a greater agenda, actually, which is to destabilise Russia. I mean,
so it's us trying to destabilise Russia rather than Russia trying to destabilise Ukraine by the invasion of Crimea. Presumably, you thought the invasion of Crimea was fine.
Crimea, for example. Crimea has always been, if you look in history, it's always been Russian. In fact, it was actually given by Khrushchev to the Ukrainians in 1954.
Yeah, given to the Ukrainians in 1954, and Ukraine is a sovereign nation which does not deserve to be invaded by a foreign power.
Yeah, no, at that time it was actually a socialist republic within the
I'm well
Soviet
aware
Union,
of that.
Right?
So basically, in your law of international relations, Russia can invade any territory it likes because at one stage it happened to own it.
It doesn't own it. You don't own it. It's where the people live there. At least 50% of the people that live there are of Russian descent.
25% actually, but I mean, who's going to argue about 25%?
Well, look, if you consider the population of Ukraine at the moment is probably halved, or it's probably maybe even less than what it was, even less than half.
Yeah, because the Russians have kidnapped a lot of Ukrainian children. That goes part of it. Do you agree with that?
Again, this is all about demonization.
Oh my goodness! Are you denying that Russia has kidnapped at least 20,000 Ukrainian children?
Kidnapping seems a bit extreme to me.
They've taken them out.
They've probably acted.
They've taken them out of Ukraine to Russian territory, given them to Russian families, and their parents in Ukraine are wondering what's happened to them. Do you not think that's a bad thing?
Actually, you could argue that they're acting in loco parentis, bearing in mind their family may very well have been...
Get off my radio station, Tom. You disgust me. I was determined I wasn't going to lose my temper with you. But how you can come out with this pro-Putin absolute bollocks, I do not know. Apologies for using that word. 7:50.